We have some experts here, as you have seen. The whole question of religious liberty and rights of conscience sits before us in the changing reality of healthcare reform. We have changes in practice, we have changes in plans, we have changes in organizations. We have lots of shifting going on within the healthcare world, and our concern about the rights of religious liberty and the rights of conscience can be focused now. Questions?
So
yes.
When I've explained to a number of patients I don't prescribe Viagra or Cialis to unmarried men. I am actually putting myself at legal risk to do that.
Yes.
Yes. Can we hear the questions? No. The doctor asked the question that in his private practice, when he does not prescribe Cialis or Viagra to unmarried men, is he putting himself at legal risk? And the short said yes. Yes.
Given the evidence of the dangers of contraception, the health risks, the causal relationship between all kinds of medical problems, is anybody working on the mother of all liability cases against the pharmaceutical industry?
Not that I know of, unfortunately.
It's a very profitable thing to do.
The first question that would come to my mind would be whether, the first question that I would want to clear up in that is whether FDA approval precludes that sort of lawsuit. I'm not sure if it does. Yeah,
It does not.
No, it does
Not
not.
at all.
Okay, well, John, you talk to John over there. I'm sure he's looking for the mother of all lawsuit.
Yes.
I have a partial comment to answer to that question. So, I think it's worthwhile, it's worth investigating, pursuing, but right now the medical establishment relies on statistical wizardry and very poorly performed studies, population studies that seem to show that contraceptives are not harmful overall, because they claim some benefits in terms of reducing uterine cancer and things like that, and they claim that overall there's no harm, even though it raises blood pressure, even though it does this, even though it does that sort of thing. But those studies are really bad, and they should not withstand scientific scrutiny. And so I think it's conceivable that one could make the case, but they're not so obvious because they rely on those sort of
Richard had a comment and a question.
Yeah. I think this also comes up as part of any lawsuits against the HHS mandate, because in any religious freedom case, you're going to have a decision about not only whether this is an infringement on religious freedom, but whether the state has a strong interest in doing what it's doing in promoting this objectionable service. And so here the burden is not to show that contraceptives are a net harm, but to show that they are at the very least not proven to be a benefit, or something that the government has a compelling interest, or in some circumstances just a legitimate interest in promoting, whether it's doing that in a way that's the least infringement on religious freedom. So in the suits, and I think there are going to be more suits coming forward from Catholic institutions against the mandate, it's going to be incredibly useful to have medical experts filing amicus briefs pointing out that the health profile of these drugs and devices is not what the Institute of Medicine group said. The health benefits of contraception were affirmed by a group of 16 members of the Institute of Medicine, and that was taken up by HHS. We found out that at least 5 of those members are board members of Planned Parenthood affiliates. But it is a very skewed, very jaundiced view that says this is an unalloyed benefit to women that needs to be advanced and promoted more aggressively, even on those who object. And we're going to need medical voices. Catholic Medical Association already has a very good statement done by several OBGYNs, and we've encouraged them to gather a larger group and a very documented amicus brief that'll say this is just not the case.
Comment here, and then if you come up to the microphone here, and then we'll do it that way, and that way everybody can hear.
Thank you. Can you hear me? First of all, I think there's two questions that came out And it was interesting because I was talking to John just about that, just when I think it was Bob that brought up the question. First of all, if you have an individual who has been harmed, and you can document the harm, and of course you need to have medical information, you have to have a doctor, you have to have support for and evidence of the harm, then you have a potential cause of action against Planned Parenthood or against whoever the provider is of the drug, of the medication, no matter whether it's been approved by the FDA or not. That's one thing. And of course, if you could show a pattern in practice of promoting this particular medication, even though there is a harm, that's where we've all seen the class action suits that have taken certain medications off the market because the motivation is not for the health of the person, but is for a monetary gain or something else. But you have to have the individual who's been harmed, you have to have a causal relationship between the harm that the person has suffered and the particular medication that's an issue, in this case the contraceptive, the drug, the abortifacient, whatever, and then you can pursue an action. Of course, then you need to have attorneys who are familiar with that subject matter, and you also have to have medical experts who will testify. And of course, we all know that, well, we also have the parasitic lawyers, we also have the court-adverse doctors. So, I mean, having been in the pro-life effort for 32 years as a lawyer and having represented victims of abortion, finding doctors who will testify has always been a challenge to us pro-life doctors or lawyers. But the second question is what the FDA did, particularly with the RU486, the failure of clinical trials, the fact that the push to approve it was so terrible, the history of the problems relating to that the abortion is not medically necessary or indicated that women have suffered because of it, that is an area that can be pursued through the government approach of suing HHS and saying this drug shouldn't be on the market because it poses a harm to women and to the class of people, everyone, for the fact that the babies are killed and the women are harmed, and you can go after the government in that area. But then again, you need to have the backup, you need to have the medical evidence, and you need to have the studies. And since, as Michelle was saying, there's very poor studies done on the subject matter, it's an area we need to examine.
Thank you. Next, there. Come up here, please. Yeah. Please come up here for the question.
Hello, is that on? Yep. I wanted to thank you for the comments about the rich history of Catholic healthcare in the state, but I'd also like to ask about what I observed. I worked for 11 years in a Catholic Healthcare West facility, and not only do we have the enemy without to deal with, I think we have the enemy within to deal with. Because when I worked at Catholic Healthcare facility, it was very obvious that the facility, the nuns, did not support Catholic healthcare in all phases, meaning there was pro-abortion mindset, pro-contraception, things that would undermine true Catholic healthcare. And so I'm wondering if that's a discussion, that's on the radar, dealing not only with the enemy without, which we're facing, but also within to get our house in order.
Did you say that they were performing abortions?
I don't have proof of that, but I do know that the Planned Parenthood, with the cooperation and support of the administration, was aided in coming into the county. It was public knowledge that they were getting support behind the scenes. I also know that there was the prenatal counseling program was referring to Planned Parenthood. It was in one of their brochures as a resource. But I don't know about the actual abortions. But they also had invited Patricia Schroeder to be the keynote speaker at a women's health forum, the notorious late-term abortion advocate. So those things I do know.
Yeah. Well, I'm not aware of any Catholic institution in the state of California, healthcare institution, or anywhere else that does abortions. So I think we need to make that very clear. There may be people within the organizations who support abortion or pro-abortion laws, but I'm not aware of any of them that are performing them. There have been instances, I'm aware of them, where funding has been provided through a foundation or others to a pro-abortion organization like Planned Parenthood. Very often, those get elevated to discussions with the local bishops, and in subsequent years, corrective action is taken. So I would always recommend that in those instances, if you become aware of something like that happening, raise it with your local bishop. Get your bishop involved. Challenge whether or not that practice should be going on, and see if you can't get it ended. Because there's an issue of scandal involved when that happens, and when you are inviting speakers in to address a local community like Pat Schroeder with her background, you're clearly stating a position in favor of something that the church doesn't support at all. Good. Thank you.
I'm Peter Sultana, family medicine, family doctor in Santa Rosa. So I don't know all the legalities of everything, but I really appreciate it. I want to say I appreciate all the work that you're doing with all of this. In regards to the last question before about picking out a medication or proving that abortions do harm, my question is about picking our battles on this, because all of the talks this morning have been about the issue of freedom to practice religion. Now we're getting into proving whether or not a medicine is safe or effective. And I think that the danger of that is that we might lose our focus and pick the wrong battle. And that we may prove that one contraceptive is dangerous only to let the next contraceptive come in. Or to just push that we need better abortions rather than we need safer abortions rather than we need no abortions. So by doing that, maybe we would be accepting the premise that these things are good things to have, we just don't have safe ones yet. So I'm wondering if that thought has come up that we might be going the wrong direction in trying to do that. And I know there's a lot of work being put into that.
Thank you. Yeah. The context in which I think it is important to correct the record on some of these things is in the religious freedom context. But in the law, religious freedom can be balanced against other things. The Mormons, a long time ago, said, this is not about polygamy, this is about religious freedom. They lost because the court decided that there was a compelling state interest in, seems rather quaint now, compelling state interest in monogamous marriage between man and woman. So
We've been trying to
always,
remind you of that.
yeah, this would not happen in California anymore, of course. So it's always religious freedom about something, and therefore it's a much less burden to meet. The burden of saying that the administration's case, that this is an essential part of basic health care for every woman, and that the government needs to be forcing it even on people who don't want it. When by their own claim, 98% have it now already anyway. That's a much easier burden to meet, to say, this is not like cardiac surgery, this is not like AIDS prevention. In fact, indications now that some of these contraceptives increase the risk for women to get and transmit AIDS. So just to counter that and say, this is not something you can claim overrides religious freedom because of its unalloyed wonderful benefits to women, is all the burden we need to meet in that religious freedom context. But you do need to get into that issue, because if the other side makes these exaggerated, wild claims that this is the greatest thing since aspirin, then you might lose even if the court agrees you have some religious freedom. Religious freedom can be overridden to save people's lives.
Thank you.
This question is kind of addressed to everybody there. Almost everyone has said something about how the opponents either ignore or defy even existing laws, never mind moral precepts. For example, the welding, ignored in California. The penalty is too big, so they know it won't be enacted, or the penalty is too small, or whatever it is. We find our opponents, the culture of deaf people, are very willing to be, let's call them risk takers, maybe call them bureaucratic saboteurs, all sorts of things. However, it seems like historically, on our side, there's no risk too minute or too remote to deter us from complying with whatever the laws are, except, well, not complete class, but we just see this over and over again. It seems to me that, and I'd like maybe each of you, or whoever is appropriate to comment about this, Dana particularly got a little emotional about it, isn't it time that we stand up on these things and do say that we're not going to comply, and in some cases be practical about it, to simply ignore the regulations. How do we know they're ever going to be enforced? Let them try to enforce them. Maybe we need a little bureaucratic sabotage of our own sort. Bureaucratic defiance, there's all sorts of other things. If there's no risk too small to be avoided in this, how can we make any progress? Any one of you would like to comment, please?
I call myself the sort of not the real lawyer because I have the opinion we have way too many laws and it shouldn't be that difficult. In fact, I have a plaque in my office that says the original law library and it's the Ten Commandments. I mean, we made it so difficult on so many levels to litigate anything because there's always some other law or some other this or some other that. So in response to Alvin, what I've noticed, and I noticed this when I worked for California legislature, and I notice it now interacting with Congress, and I'm by no means down there every week, I interact very little, but our leadership is spineless. I mean, they do not want to take a risk about anything. And I don't know what it's going to take. If not this, I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, I heard a congressman, he's from Florida, he's not my congressman, his name is Alan West. He spoke at a meeting I was at the other night, and he just said, you know, this is about totally changing the face of our nation. We're a constitutional republic, and we're letting these people get away with this. And he quoted, because if you want to know what they're up to next, read the Communist Manifesto, Saul Alinsky, and the Muslim Brotherhood. And the technique with the writings of Saul Alinsky is to create a conflict and blame it on the other side. So, Alvin, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we creating the conflict and blaming it on the other side? Why are we so afraid, when I say we, I'm talking about our leaders, why are we so afraid to confront the media on something as simple as contraceptives? I mean, we don't want any bad press. And we don't get any good press because the media ignores us. So, you know, I'm just babbling on and on here, but I don't understand why we aren't creating the conflict and why we're not blaming it on the other side. And I said this when I first got involved, probably about 5 years ago, with some meetings at the Capitol in D.C. And they were talking about, you know, we have a pro-life house and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I looked at them and I said, no, you're not. Welcome to California. I can tell you right now what they're going to do next based on what's happening in California. I mean, it's not rocket science. So why aren't we creating the conflict? Why can't we can't even find somebody to run for president that's dynamic? And what's going on? Where are these people? So, other comments?
Well, I do think at the same time we need to be very realistic. And that is, while we're at the ramparts, we also need to be thinking of the environment that we're in, the context that we're in. And as was just mentioned, we're in an environment where I don't care what kind of noise we make, the mainstream media will not cover it. If they do cover it, they cover it from a jaundiced point of view that makes us look like idiots. Even though someone doing the exact same thing
on behalf of a sanctioned or a supported a measure gets entirely different press. But one of the things we're working on, and we need to get to talk about risk-averse institutions. The United States Congress is among the most significant. We need to get a very simple thing enacted into law, and that is, as part of the Weldon Amendment, as part of conscience legislation, we need to have a private right of action. And that private right of action gives us the opportunity, when a state agency or a federal agency says to us, we want you to perform medically necessary abortions or refer for medically necessary abortions or whatever else that they're asking us to do in violation of our conscience, we can say, instead of saying, well, we'll appeal this to the department or to the Office for Civil Rights at HHS and wait for 3 or 4 years while they do an investigation, we can say, we'll see you in federal district court tomorrow. And empower the federal district court judges in instances of clear-cut discrimination to apply meaningful penalties to these agencies. What we want to be able to do is put these agencies on record, or put them into a position where they're so fearful themselves of legal action, they're so fearful themselves of a penalty, they're so fearful of creating a problem within their own bureaucracies over this that they don't take the action against us in the first place. And they allow us to operate with freedom. And if the healthcare reform law is upheld by the Supreme Court, there's going to be a lot of regulatory activity all across this country and within specific states in terms of the healthcare arena. We're going to be subject to all sorts of potential problems with respect to having to do things that we cannot do. And Catholic health care, much less from within, but definitely from without, will definitely be in great jeopardy, as well as many of our other institutions. So Richard and I, and we hope all of you, have been asking Congress to enact a statute that gives us the right to go to court ourselves and not wait for the government to act on our behalf as a media or any other institution that doesn't support what we believe in. But we can go into court. And it hasn't been easy, as Richard will tell you, to get this Congress, even with all of the ostensible pro-life members in this Congress, to take constructive action on our behalf. Thank you.
I'm going to direct this question to Richard. And this is a hypothetical question, but maybe not. But it's regarding the Supreme Court now. And if, just say, they were to do it quickly, and they did throw up, the Affordable Care Act, what impact would that have on the HHS mandate?
And he's not even a lawyer.
Yes. Not even a parasitic lawyer. But I repeat myself. That was A to G time, but it's just true. There are some wonderful lawyers here. If they throw out the entire act, then yes, the mandate goes away, because the mandate is only exists because it's authorizing, the statute authorizes HHS to create this mandate. However, if all they throw out is the individual mandate that everyone buy health insurance, the prospects are a lot murkier, because the Congress could go back and try to figure out another way to make this work. They could say some of this might be workable without the individual mandate. And basically, even if you tell people you are not required by law to buy health coverage, that still could mean that they tell everybody who does buy health coverage, it has to have this in it. Now, it may be that they could not say to a Catholic organization, because you offer a plan that doesn't include this, and we define this contraceptive coverage as an essential part of what it means to be a health plan, what you are continuing to offer doesn't count as a health plan. So, but that, it may mean that they can't fine them for doing that, but it might also mean that all the benefits, including the federal tax credits for lower income workers and so on, that accrue to a qualified health plan, don't accrue to a Catholic plan, and that might still have enough disincentive that the Catholic plans become much, much more expensive and difficult to operate. So if all they knock down is the individual mandate, there are still problems that the scope of which is difficult to predict.
And California, I would add, is, we're about 16, 17 months into the creation of our own exchanges, which, based on our political scenario here and the experience of Washington State, we will see another run, even if there's not a federal individual mandate. At that point, we'll see another run in California to make abortion a mandated benefit as part of all health plans in California.
John Brady with Catholic Medical Association. I just wanted a couple points real quick. There are scores, if not hundreds, of lawsuits, and maybe some of you know this, against contraceptive makers, both because of the ortho patch. A lot of third-generation pills are causing many more strokes and heart attacks. They actually thought they would cause less. They're causing more. And people told me, I've seen billboards inviting women, if they've been harmed by Yaz and things, to contact an attorney. And someone told me there are now Facebook ads, that are inviting women to step forward. So a lot of this is going on and probably will roll forward. So, just a quick question for the panel then. And I realize the complexities of simply getting a private right of action or even getting a comprehensive statute through, like respect for rights of conscience. But it seems to me that the larger tsunami we're fighting is that healthcare is becoming defined as a government-controlled benefit. That the government is in control. Now with the latest law, government is in charge of regulating everything about it and of paying for everybody's health care and controlling for that. So ultimately, it seems we have to push back not only on very specific things like the mandate and for very specific provisions like conscience rights, but we have to push back against this entire regulatory leviathan because otherwise, the premise, both for the people in charge and for the people getting their health care, is this is one big government socialist thing. So what do you think about that?
I'll take that one.
I agree with you, and I think one place to begin on pushing back would be to tout the benefits of high deductible policies. Move insurance back to its original purpose, was to insure against unknown risks. I think the reason we've gotten into this is because insurance has become simply a method of prepaying for frequently known costs. And so if we move back insurance to where you get high deductible policies that are only covering emergencies, catastrophic events, things like that, that would be a good first step towards doing that.
So let's take two more questions here. And then we'll wrap it up.
I don't want to stop from asking questions, but particularly because of where I work, I want to offer give your to that a little bit. Not that that's not true, but that it is, to me, it's a distinct issue. And sometimes I ask my conservative friends, if today you needed to find a plan, not offered by a Catholic institution, a health plan that excludes abortion and that allows you a choice of whether to have contraception or not, where would you go? And the answer is a federal government-run health plan. The Hyde Amendment keeps most abortions out of the federal plans, and even as I mentioned, even in the federal employees benefits plan, you can find a plan that doesn't have contraception. Where would you go to find a plan that does have abortion? Secular, for-profit, private health plan. So I think they're distinct issues. I think there are specific dangers to an overreach by the federal government. But we should not allow that to have us give our blessing to what the market does when it is not guided by moral principles either. And the private market is rife with these incentives to cover this stuff because they think it saves them money. One good thing about the federal government, we all know from long history, it clearly is not trying to show a profit. But I think the issue of big government versus small government is actually distinct from the issue of what is government doing? Is it doing good or doing evil? I know that those often get mixed together. I think it's a mistake to simply equate them. Thank you.
Doerflinger's a communist, get out of here.
I have a question.
It's on.
I have a question for the lawyers. I'm an internist. I work for the medical group that is affiliated with Kaiser Foundation Health Plan. As part of my physician homepage, I am very clear about my Roman Catholic belief that it is core to my practice. I routinely get patients in who request birth control, the Cialis, the Viagra, and I'm very clear to them as far as why I will not prescribe these things, and moreover, I go into depth with them. My question is, it's part of my belief, my faith is part of the way is how I practice. But the risk to me, I hadn't really thought of that. And am I ignoring the elephant in the room? And what is the risk to me? And how can I protect my right and my gift to practice medicine?
Well, you're definitely at risk doing that, especially in California. But let me give you an example. I was involved with a case one time, and another lawyer was helping me with it. And we were at trial, and I was making rude remarks about opposing counsel. And he said, Dana, did you ever stop and think that maybe she doesn't like her client? Have you never represented somebody that you don't want to represent? And I thought about that a minute, and I said, no, I haven't. So to make the point that you have to live with yourself, you have to answer to God. If it puts you at risk, then personally, I believe you need to be at risk. And that's easy for me to say. There's been times in my practice of law where I've had death threats and other things going on. I know I'm at risk. I know that my finances are at risk. But you just have to have faith in God. So, having said that, I'll let the real lawyer respond.
No, I mean, this is the sort of thing that would require some, an individualized discussion about what, simply not at this point, you are free not to provide those services. Again, the exception I pointed out was the discrimination laws. When you don't provide these things, it has to be across the board. Fortunately, in California, there is, I didn't mean to mention that, we do in California have a statute that protects the right of conscience not to participate in abortions in particular. Now, it doesn't go to contraceptives, it doesn't go to these other things, but we do at least have that in California. Though unfortunately, because of a court case that, specifically the emergency contraceptives are not considered to be covered under that statute. But right now, for the individual practitioner, as far as I'm aware of, are you in obstetrics or?
No, I'm an internist.
Yeah.
Internal medicine.
Okay, then, I would think that it would be just that one, the discrimination law, that you would want to be most cautious about at this point. Again, the obstetrics is where you get into questions of, how thorough was your counseling with this patient? Did you tell them that this could happen or that could happen, and all these reasons they might want to abort that child.
Take the last question.
Just two comments. I will try to make them brief because I know we're up against lunch here. The first comment is, Richard Doerflinger mentioned the bias of the IOM committee, and the IOM committee was basically responsible for HHS mandate and through his recommendation 5.5. Not only were they members of Planned Parenthood, they're actually award winners from organizations such as NARAL, and furthermore, between 11 of the 16 members, they have donated $120,000 plus to candidates such as Barack Obama, Barbara Boxer, and other such proponents of abortion and contraception on demand. The bias is very clear, and so then what that does is it makes you look at the report, and when you look at the report, when they, in one sentence, say that the contraceptive benefits way outweigh the burdens, in one sentence, they appeal to 3 educational pamphlets from ACOG. 3 educational pamphlets from ACOG that are written on those pamphlets that says, on a 6th to 8th grade level. This is the highest level of science in our country, and they are appealing to educational pamphlets written to 6th and 8th graders. If you want a full report on that, you can see my article in the Public Discourse, as well as in the Lineker Quarterly coming out in a few months. Second comment, there are actually 9,300 lawsuits currently against Bayer Pharmaceuticals on because of Yaz and Yasmin is I would consider it's 4th generation of contraceptive pills. That's as of July of 2011. So there's actually 9,300. I think that's a significant thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we break, I want to make one little commercial. I got word while we were discussing that in California we have a bill that was originally SB 1501, and it is a bill that allows other than physicians to perform aspiration abortions in the first 3 months. And they switched the number on that bill. It's now SB 1338, and it will be heard April 16th in the Business and Professions Committee, which was a boon for us because they were trying to sidetrack it away from the scope of practice issue, which we wanted to tee up, and now we've got it back in Business and Professions. So it's teed up for a scope of practice argument, and so we need the doctors and the nurses from the Catholic Medical Association, the Catholic Nurses Association, to call your associations and call in and raise the issue and certainly call attention to it. So a little plug there, a little commercial. Thank you very much. I'd like you to join me in thanking our panel and to chat with them or ask them any further questions, and Mike's going to tell you about lunch and whatever's coming next.
Thank you, Ned, and the whole panel for that, great, all the great talks we had, and also for all the good questions.